Well, as you can imagine, the Ukrainian authorities are very angry about this. Their language is completely consistent with the kind of language that we've heard from their international, predominantly Western allies and the UN. They are describing this referendum as a complete sham, lacking any kind of legal basis in an international context whatsoever. We've had reaction already from the Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Dmytro Kuleba. He's calling for even tougher sanctions from the EU. In his words, he says that the softer the reaction is from the European Union, the greater that will give Russia even more motivation to potentially try, at least, to annex even more territory. Let's keep in mind that this, what is being seen is a potential attempt to annex around 15% of Ukraine by Russia, an area roughly the size of Portugal, has huge implications. And we were speaking yesterday to one of the presidential advisors, a Mr. Mikhailo Podolyak. He drew attention to the farcical nature, in his words, of these referendum for the mere fact that Russia does not control fully, at least, any of these four regions. For example, it's held a referendum in the region of Zaporizhia. It doesn't even control the main city, the regional capital, Zaporizhia city. So there are huge questions here as to what will come from this. There is a concern of an increased escalation in fighting. Let's have a listen to what more Mikhailo Podolyak told us yesterday.
There is no legality to this referendum because it's pure propaganda. It'll have no consequences in international law. This is Ukraine's territory and it will remain Ukraine territory. Secondly, you cannot conduct a referendum legally when there is a war on this occupied territory and when people go door to door with weapons, forcing people to vote. This vote doesn't change anything when we understand that Russia is on the path of escalation and we will liberate all our territory. President Zelensky says that Russian action in holding this vote will completely block any peace negotiation process.
So we've already heard from the United States. It's understood that they are planning an additional series of sanctions and more arms to be sent. It's understood an arms cache worth around $1.1 billion. Bear in mind that America has already sent or committed to around $9 billion worth of weapons. Already the UK as well has slapped additional sanctions on what they describe as Russians having been involved in organising and implementing this, what they say is an illegal referendum. Podolyak also said, interestingly, that Ukrainians found to have taken part in this referendum, certainly organising it, faced treason charges and up to 5 years in jail. He also said that in no way was Ukraine intimidated by Russia's nuclear threats. We know that President Putin made a veiled threat about potentially using nuclear weapons. He said that this makes absolutely no difference to Ukraine's policy and strategy. They would continue to push forward to deoccupy, in his words, all of Russian-occupied territory, or the territory that Russia controls. And on that front, some interesting lines coming out overnight about fighting in the east, most particularly around a very strategic town called Liman. That is just north of the town of Slavyansk, of huge strategic importance because it is a massive rail hub. Very heavy fighting, we understand, going on around Liman. There are also reports that certainly unverifiable that Russian forces may have lost control to the Ukrainian military on their northern flank of that city. Bear in mind that over the last couple of days, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said their number one priority now, the Ukrainian army, is to defend and then push back Russian forces out of Donetsk region. We understand that Ukrainian forces control only around 40% of Donetsk. In Zelensky's words, this is our number one priority because it seems as if it is Russia's number one priority too. So as we've been reporting, this referendum seems to only really be stimulating potentially more fighting in the coming days and weeks.
Charles Stratford with that update from Kyiv. Thank you.